You guys want to look at the camera and smile? See, there we go.
Where's the camera? Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2013 Federal Election Leaders Debate. Today's debate will be divided into 4 sections: introductory statements, party-directed questions, questions from the voters, and closing statements. We have limited time, so we ask that all debaters respect these time restraints. Without further ado, let's let the debating begin with the introductory statements. I'm going to start with Mr. Cameron Grenville.
We at the Canadian Liberty Party believe in one very simple principle, that every individual is born free, that every individual inherently has complete freedom and absolute rights, and that governments only exist to restrict these rights, and that government should not exist to restrict people's rights. Government should exist only to protect the rights of the people. The idea that a government can protect the people from themselves is ludicrous. It's essentially taking away one right to protect another, and that's nothing if not complete hypocrisy. We believe that as part of this freedom, every human should have the right to conduct their business as they see fit, economically and personally. We don't believe in coercive taxation. We don't believe in the idea that there is such a thing as hate speech, or that there is such a thing as special rights for any minority. All people have all rights. And that any government that tries to infringe that is inherently evil and has to be destroyed.
Next up, Ms. Claudia Ariano.
My name is Claudia Ariano. I'm the leader of the People's Benefit Party of Canada. We believe that Canada is a growing and changing environment. It has a constant need to evolve and to better its policies and strategies in order to accommodate the need of its large population. The People's Benefit Party is dedicated to bettering the lives of people, all lives of all people, from the youngest to the oldest, from the richest into the poorest. The People's Benefit Party promises you change, positive change for a positive outcome in our world. If I'm elected, I will bring you an honest and transparent government whose purpose is to help provide care and support for Canadians from all walks of life. I will bring families the support they need through social programs and government funding. My dream is for a better future for Canadians, and together we can make that difference.
Next up, we have the Community Party and Ms. Darius Jankaitis.
Okay, so my name is Darius Jankaitis, and I'm the leader of the Community Party. And the Community Party believes that is what our nation should be, a community. And we came to this conclusion being that provinces work together in order to form our great nation. And we figure on a smaller scale that communities, be it young or old, everyone should be a part and have say. And so we've geared our party to work with the people to ensure that people are getting the right education, the right health care, and just the right respect in general. And everyone is able to have a word, so we try to emphasize on the people's rights. And so we hope that that will help strengthen relationship between between provinces to make our country stronger and a better place.
And the New Generation Party, Ms. Sabrina Kim.
Good afternoon. I'm Sabrina Kim, and I'm the leader of the New Generation Party. I would first like to congratulate all my fellow running mates for well-thought, insightful, and intelligent campaigns. Although we all have very different views, I'm glad to say that we share a common goal, which is to make Canada a better place to live, grow, and prosper in. The New Generation is proud to be a party who is looking forward in today's world, excited and ready for the times ahead. Canada is known for being a strong country whose people hold themselves with dignity and pride. Working on our campaign has been very gratifying. Knowing that we may be running such a beautiful country is humbling and staggering. The New Generation Party stands to create a more united and inclusive Canada. We will strive for equality for all, regardless of race, creed, religion, sexual orientation, gender, ability, or disability. We understand and know the struggles Canadians face: paying off student debt, supporting your family, finding a job, taking care of sick loved ones, poverty, discrimination, or investing in your future. These are problems that need to be addressed, not swept under the rug and ignored or passed onto the provinces and territories. To become a better country, we must all work together. The federal and provincial governments need to work as one to help the individuals and families living in Canada. We aim to continue support and increase transfer payments from the federal to provincial governments, specifically for healthcare, to ensure equality throughout the provinces. We are concerned that Canada's international reputation is failing. Countries are now advancing on without us. This should be a national embarrassment. Our current government's environment policies have won us the Colossal Fossil Award for being the most destructive country in the world last year. As a nation, we cannot continue this way. The New Generation Party will strive to achieve economic success. We believe in fair and equal opportunity for all Canadians and in proportional participation regarding taxes and social responsibility. At a time like this, our country needs an escape from right-wing politics right now, not outdated, obsolete tactics that have demoted our great country. Our party has the drive and will to change the face and heart of Canadian politics. We look to you, the people, for inspiration and motivation. You are the reason we are working so hard. This is why we, the New Generation Party, strongly believe that we are the best candidates to run this fine country. Thank you to everyone who has shown their support.
Thank you. Next up, we have the party-directed questions. Now, these segments will consist of a 3-minute response from the party that the question is directed to, followed by a 1-minute response from each of the other parties. The first question is directed at Claudia Oriano, the leader of the People's Benefit Party of Canada. With respect to your planned increase in government programs and spending, where do you intend to gather the money and gain the authority required to follow through on such plans? What justification does your party have in assuming control over such matters as education, childcare, and public transportation? You have 3 minutes.
Right. Well, I believe that education is a duty of the state. The instruction of Canada's youth is of the utmost importance to the future of Canadian society. From tuition rates to provincial school funding, the People's Benefit Party of Canada believes that it is providing a new structure that is beneficial for the future. As for childcare, it is essential to the support of working families. We don't want to take control, we just want to provide an infrastructure to working families and to Canada's youth to stimulate both job growth and the economy. As for public transportation, it's essential for the future of any country, and I especially believe that it is essential to the future of our country. And I believe that the government should play a large role in society to help in what ways it can, as transparently as it can. And that is why we have both the authority and the duty to provide in these matters.
Okay, second responder, the Community Party.
Okay, so we believe in getting funding from government by reducing our spending on some areas. So for example, for childcare, that could file under like just childcare and child needs and necessities. So being part of the Community Party, we would like to really emphasize like the needs of a child, and we suggest that maybe reducing elderly costs and using some of those costs that we spend to accommodate the elderly to start accommodating our new generation, and so that can justify our childcare. For public transportation, maybe find a way to become more efficient with our public transportation. That would require some research, and I'm sure that we can get to a new point where we spend less money on public transportation.
And next up, the Canadian Liberty Party.
Well, at the Canadian Liberty Party, we personally believe that a province probably knows better than an overarching federal government what it needs in terms of education or healthcare, and that any given city certainly knows what it needs in terms of public transportation a lot better than the federal government half the country away. We also believe that these programs would not necessarily benefit from an increase in funding, but would probably benefit more from an increase in efficiency by trimming things like unnecessary bureaucrats and other obstructions to actually getting things achieved with taxpayer money.
Okay. And the New Generation Party.
So just with respect to increasing in government programs and spending, our economic plan will gain economic growth to afford these programs in a couple of ways. So firstly, currently the Harper government introduced many tax cuts, up to $6 billion in large corporations that simply don't need these tax cuts. Currently, they are paying less taxes than companies in the U.S. by 25%, and they simply don't need to be cut even more. So, if elected, we will eliminate these ridiculous tax cuts, make sure these corporations are paying what they should be paying, and this will eventually generate $6 billion into our economy over 4 years. We don't believe in large increases in personal taxes. However, if you're making over $120,000 per year, and currently you are being taxed 30% of that, however, we will increase that by 2 to 3%.
Thanks. Okay. Question 2, directed at Darius Jankitis, leader of the Community Party. In your campaign literature, you fiercely advocate for an end to child poverty in Canada. While this is a commendable goal, your plan for addressing child poverty includes cutting support for our aging population. Do you think it is fair to abandon those who have spent their lives building this country? Furthermore, how do you think this policy will play with the huge number of aging baby boomers that make up the Canadian electorate?
Well, I don't think it's any more fair to abandon the elderly as it is to abandon the poor children of our nation that will be raising, that will be the new generation providing for our country. So I say that we should give them a half-decent start. Ottawa gives nearly 3 times more the support to elderly through finances to elderly than with child support, child poverty cases. So it's clear that their focus is on elderly, meanwhile the youth are going to become the new future for Canada. So it's important that both of them have an equal opportunity. So we're not going to abandon anyone, we're simply going to kind of tweak it, reduce the pay for elderly so it's more evened out, balanced. And it's not like we're going to just cut it in half, we're also going to have other things in effect, such as a minimum wage increase. We're gearing for a minimum wage increase, which would suggest that people working minimum wage, just getting by with like an okay job, would in fact have more money to cover. So that way we're not taking away from the elderly, we're just putting more money in people's pockets that are working, like hard working, and that deserve more money. So we'll only be taking a small percentage out of elderly, and then we've got other plans to fix up for whatever just regular Canadians who are dealing with child poverty, whether it's the children or their parents. Okay,
the New Generation Party.
So I just want to say that I completely disagree with what the Community Party is saying, because the aging population is something very important, and it's just going to become even more important. So cutting spending even by a little bit is going to be extremely detrimental to our society. If anything, we should be increasing spending for old age population. Through our economic plan, we will obtain the money for this, and especially right now, 14% of our population is over 65 years old. By 2040, 25% of that population will be over 65 years old. We can't afford to be cutting spending for the old age population. We should be putting more money into that, as it is only increasing. I mean, child poverty is a huge issue, and we do need to address it and create solutions. However, at the same time, we can't forget about the old age population.
Next up, the People's Benefit Party.
We believe that it is important to provide support to both the children suffering from poverty in this country and also to the elderly. A lot of this can be achieved through social programs, which we are a great advocate of at the People's Benefit Party. I think we believe that social programs are an important part of social progress and positive progress. We believe that both of these groups of people are very important, but as Ms. Kim said, we don't believe that Canada, with such an aging population, can afford to cut spending for the elderly. And so we believe that we can, to be able to provide for both these groups of people, we can't detract from one group to provide for the other. We must provide for both in different separate ways.
And the Canadian Liberty Party.
We personally believe that the government should only support those who are unable to support themselves, whether they're young or old. To us, it doesn't really matter whether somebody who can't support themselves is, say, a 5-year-old child with parents who can't work, or a 70-year-old who can't work for their own reasons. The important thing is that only the people who can provide for themselves should be supported. That's our stance.
Okay. We'll move on to question number 3. This question is directed at Sabrina Kim, the leader of the New Generation Party. In your platform, you encourage enhanced cooperation between the public and private spheres of the economy. Such cooperation in its most extreme form is known as corporatism. Is your party not wary of the consequences that such a deep partnership entails, namely the unchecked influence of corporations on our governments and the creation of oppressive monopolies?
Okay, so I just want to start by saying that we are aware of the consequences that such a deep partnership entails, and that is why we do not advocate for such a deep partnership. We do think that the public and private sectors should have a good relationship between each other, as they are both very important. However, we do not believe that this partnership should be as deep as this question suggests that we do. So we will be putting in government transparency to keep the government honest. We will work together and encourage cooperation between the public and private sectors, but at the same time, we still need to establish a clear and distinct line between the public and private sectors. There is by no means will the government allow the private sector, for example, to overthrow the public sector. We have worked with corporations in the government since the Confederation in Canada, and we will continue to do so. In retort, the people's trades some freedoms to encourage an ethical security. Government supports and protects. It does not strip rights. This is the true fundamental of liberalism, and that's what we believe in.
The Canadian Liberty Party.
We believe that allowing the government to have enough influence that corporations can sort of control the government, we believe that if the government simply doesn't have enough power to be extremely influential, then corporations won't try and influence it. We believe that a limited government is the solution to corporations attempting to corporate influence on the government. Because if a corporation can't influence the government into actually doing much because the government doesn't have any power, then there is really no reason for them to.
And the Community Party.
The Community Party would agree that the public and private sectors should remain separate, just to add justification to how companies versus individuals are doing economically, and see who requires more help than others. We think that it would be easier to determine.
And the People's Benefit Party.
I believe that in a situation such as the close connection or tie between corporations and governments, the answer to this, as Ms. Kim said, is a very transparent governmental system. Restricting the government won't reduce the power or the influence of private private sectors. The private sector will probably rise in response to this. I believe that a large transparent government is the best way to deal with the problems of corporatism.
Question number 4, directed at Cameron Grenville, leader of the Canadian Liberty Party. Of all the parties represented here today, I think it is fair to say that the changes that you propose are by far the most dramatic. You intend to significantly cut taxes, shrink government spending, cut social support, while at the same time doing away with many of our nation's long-held laws and restrictions. Are you not setting the country up for a major domestic and international crisis?
The assumption that reductions in government would lead to crisis is the idea that restrictions on government would lead to crisis is based on the assumption that the only thing that's preventing these crises is having a large government. We disagree. We think that an overlarge government is the cause of these domestic and international crises, and that reducing the government will reduce the likelihood of these crises. Many domestic crises come about because the government has overregulated some aspect of people's lives. Many international crises come about because governments have too much influence at home and they think that they can spread that influence worldwide. We believe that less government will mean less crises, and that more government invariably means more crises. So, because any government that's big enough to give you everything that you want is big enough to take away everything that you have, and we don't believe in that sort of thing.
The People's Benefit Party of Canada.
We disagree with the statement that a large government will create a crisis. We actually believe in the opposite of this. I think a small government is exactly what would create the problem in this situation. We believe that things such as incredible tax cuts or like a restrictive government will definitely not be beneficial to the state. Looking at your tax plan and your economy plan, it just doesn't make sense to restrict the government in that way, because we do feel that a smaller government would be the creation of crises in our society right now. I believe that Canada is at a state where it can't just reduce its government so drastically as you propose without further creating problems within provinces and within its own structure. I think it will weaken the structure of the government itself.
The New Generation Party.
So exactly what Ms. Oriano said, a smaller government will only weaken the power that we have to handle these crises. It will increase the amount of crises that we have. Just for example, it's not only the small government that's the problem, it's the radical changes that you were proposing. Like, our environment is going to tremendously suffer if you continue to ignore it, and we're only going to be suffering economically because of that too. Like Ms. Oriano said, your economic plan doesn't add up. The numbers don't add up. You cannot completely cut income taxes, reduce property taxes, sales taxes, and all of that, and still manage to maintain a public health care system completely funded by the government. All your reductions are not going to add up. The banning of victimless crimes, the elimination of victimless crimes from the criminal code, and the allowance of gun control, none of this is just going to create more crises and problems in Canada, not less.
The Community Party.
Okay, so in regards to protection and losses or gains of laws and restrictions, we believe that any withstanding laws like that have been long-term and kind of tradition for Canada should stay, and we don't believe in cutting laws, as we would like to enforce more in order to protect individuals. Our platform contains a lot about women's rights, so we advocate women's rights, and for that to happen we kind of have to go that extra mile in order to show people like, oh, like, okay, you're gonna injure a woman because of how she's dressing, okay, then we'll give you another charge. So we think that laws and regulations, restrictions, this type of thing may improve our society, and we think that taking any of them away would be a loss for Canada.
Now we're moving on to the third segment of our debate. This entails questions from the voters. There will be a question delivered either on the monitor or on the screen, and then the floor will be open for 5 to 7 minutes